Good morning. I am Oliver Revelo and my partner is Amna Riamdang will report about the secular apocalypse. So first, let me first define what is secular and what is apocalypse. Secular means relating to the physical world and not the spiritual world, or not religious. It comes from the Latin word that evolved from meaning generation or age to meaning century, taken as the extreme limit of human lifetime. From this notion of period of time or the present time, it evolved to mean the present world as opposed to the seclusion of monastic religious life in order to identify clergy who work in the churches among the people. From there, it was only a step based meaning of not religious. A secular person is one who does not owe his moral values to any religion. His values are the product of his rational and scientific thinking. So, for me, it seeks to interpret life based on principles derived solely from the material world without the recourse to religion, or it shifts to focus from religion towards temporal and material concerns. So, anything not affiliated with church or faith can be called secular. Non-religious people can be called atheists or agnostics. But to describe things, activities, or attitudes that have nothing to do with religion, you can use the word secular. So apocalypse in the previous report, it means that the word apocalypse means revelation, that which uncovered. It comes from the Greek word which is literally means to pull the lid of something. So the apocalypse event may be climatic, such as runaway climatic change, natural, such as an impact event, man-made, such as nuclear holocaust, medical, such as plague or virus, whether natural or man-made, or imaginative, such as zombie apocalypse or alien invasion. A kind of secular apocalyptic sensibility pervades much contemporary writing about our current world. Many books about environmental dangers, whether it be the ozone layer or global warming or pollution of the air or water or pollution explosion, are cast in the apocalyptic mold. That is a crisis looming. We're on the verge of some horrendous catastrophe and we must do something. That's the secular apocalypse. Apart from the religious apocalypse, because the religious apocalyptic writers says disaster is looming, but there is not much we can do except see to our own personal salvation. These other writer propose strategy to avoid the crisis that lies ahead, but they have in common an apocalyptic sensibility. So as I could remember, way back in our elementary days or high school days, or even our parents, we were taught about the apocalyptic in the Bible. So one of the Jewish and Christian writings of 200 BC to AD 150, marked by pseudonymity, symbolic imagery, and the expectation of an imminent cosmic catalysm in which God destroys the ruling powers of evil and raises the righteous to life in a messianic kingdom. Or in other words, or in other meaning, in Christianity and Islamic theology, this concept is often referred to as the second coming of Jesus Christ and the establishment of the kingdom of the God on earth. So that's our sense of apocalyptic in the Bible. So one of the example of a secular apocalypse is the current COVID-19. So the current COVID-19 pandemic has led to existential crisis. One way of finding meaning in this true apocalyptic narrative, we differentiate between religious based upon eschatology and secular apocalypticism based upon a radical political and economic change, and it argued that both are to be found in the wake of COVID-19 infection. For religious believers, the apocalypse signifies the rapture of faithful into heaven, which those on earth will undergo the tribulation. For secular believers, the apocalypse signifies socio-political change. The paper ends by speculating upon the socio-political and economic changes during and after the pandemic. COVID-19 is highlighting serious deficiencies in our existing system. An effective response to this is likely to require radical social change. It argued that it requires drastic moves away from the markets and use of profit as the primary way of organizing an economy. The pandemic indicates the fragility of life in the world. Chaos engender paralyzing anxiety that the world is dissolving. A sense of detachment and raise the significant issues of meaning resulting in existential crisis. So there is what we call self-isolation and quarantine create a sense of being separated from the community and world generally, a sense of anomie. This was summed up well over 1,000 years ago by the Roman poet Virgil's notions of a maze of dread. The world itself seems entirely unreliable, not only dangerous but also deceptive. The appearance of being a safe thriving land becomes only a facade that hides the threat of death. As Switz 2020 states, the pandemics scare us partly because they transform other less concrete fears about globalization, cultural change, and community identity into tangible threats. So unlike religious apocalypticism, where the future is determined by divine intervention, in secular apocalypticism, natural events such as the current pandemic, COVID-19, are the cause of the impending doomsday. Some argues how secular apocalypticism has wrought out a naturalistic worldview and has frequently involved environmental factors like climate and nuclear destruction. Apocalyptic belief was invigorated by the world wars, the Cold War, and the threat of nuclear annihilation. Fears pertaining to atomic destruction, lethal disease, and environmental catastrophes have become prevalent. Specifically, the COVID-19 pandemic has been viewed in apocalyptic terms, signifying radical and societal change. So, Ms. Amna Rinamdang will continue the report. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. This is continues to our lesson, the secular apocalypse. The secular apocalypse is largely considered a meaningless end, where the religion's apocalypse is meaningful. Secular apocalypse is end without rebirth, without reason of cosmic skill, but rather an undoing without redemption. Ang secular apocalypse ay wala silang kinikilalang Panginoon at once na namatay sila, hindi sila mabubuhay ulit. Hindi tayong mga tao na mabubuhay tayo sa next life.